If you have a narcissist in your life, you probably feel like you're constantly being triggered. But what if you could train this person to stop triggering you and to keep conversations short and concise? That'd be amazing, right? Well, there's actually a way that you can, and it starts with disarming the narcissist. So we're going to talk about all of that, and I'm going to share 5 tips for disarming the narcissist. Welcome to the Common Ego community. My name is Christina. On this channel, we talk about emotional abuse, spirituality, and self-development. Today, we are disarming the narcissist. Now, whenever you talk to this person, you might feel like you're going to battle, and there are definitely some similarities there. But the trap that most people fall into is they try to win at the narcissist's game. And unfortunately, unless you're a narcissist, a greater narcissist than the one you're dealing with, you're not going to win at that game. They're not willingly going to give you the upper hand, and things are likely to escalate because when you have, let's just imagine you have 2 narcissists going at it, going after each other's throats. They're going to keep going and keep going until one of them taps out. And now what we're talking about is 2 people who are severely deficient in empathy. This is a battle that could get very ugly. Now, if you have empathy, you're going to tap out much sooner than either of those 2 narcissists. And when you do, you lose the battle. However, there is a way to win, and that is to change the game. So I'm going to cover 5 tips to disarm a narcissist that will keep you in the conversation if that's something that you need, but it will opt you out of their game. So the first thing you can do is, before you even have a conversation with this person, set a goal. Set your intentions. What do you want out of this interaction? Now, you probably have a goal in mind, or else you wouldn't be talking to this person, right? It's not for fun. But regardless of any other goals you may have, set a goal to maintain control over your own energy, your own reactions, and most of all, your ego. Because this, in a nutshell, is the narcissist's game. This is what they've got. You know that game that little kids play? Where like they'll take your hand and they'll make you hit yourself, right? And they'll say, why are you hitting yourself? It's kind of the narcissist's game. They used your ego to hurt you. They use your triggers, your past traumas. They dig them up to hurt you. But really what's going on is that they're using your pain against you, just like the little kid is using your hand against you. And it may even be some pain that they've inflicted upon you. And if that's the case, they basically have the inside scoop. They really know how to hurt you because they have already done it. And whatever they did left a mark. So number 1 goal, maintain control over yourself and your ego. When you're triggered, when your old wounds are triggered, your ego is going to step in and try to handle it for you. And the ego isn't necessarily a bad thing on its own, but it can definitely get us into a lot of trouble, especially with a narcissist, because the ego is very predictable. The narcissist is doing this because he or she knows exactly what you're going to do if you let your ego take control. They know that it's going to upset you, and they know how you're going to react. How do they know this? Well, probably because you've been in this situation before and you've probably reacted. But even if you haven't, narcissists have cognitive empathy. So they understand how their actions impact other people and how their actions will make other people feel. They don't have the kind of empathy that makes them care about it, but cognitive empathy does help them understand. So the second tip I have for you is to ground yourself. Bring yourself into the present moment. And if you meditate, this is going to be a little bit easier for you. So if you know you have to deal with this person on a regular basis, you may want to consider adding meditation to your daily routine. Another thing you can do is to use something physical. Some people like to put a rubber band around their wrist and snap it and maybe pinch themselves. People who employ the gray rock technique sometimes use a physical rock, and this can also be a crystal that they'll hold onto to ground themselves, and as a reminder that we need to be vigilant in these times. The third tip I have for you is to pay attention to your physical symptoms. And this tip will help you when you are actually in it with the narcissist, when you're in the thick of it, when you're actually being triggered by this person. You're going to experience some physical symptoms. One of those symptoms being an increased heart rate. So if they're triggering you and your ego wants to jump up and respond, one of the things that you're going to notice is that your heart is going to be beating a little bit faster. Instead of using that as fuel, use it as a reminder to bring yourself back into the present moment. Focus on the heart rate. Focus on the physical. Bring yourself back into that physical body. When your heart rate is increasing, it's a direct result of what's going on up here. So what does that mean? It means what they're doing is working. They're getting to you, they're triggering you, they're upsetting you. But it doesn't mean they win. Listen, every battle has ups and downs, and this is one where we need to regroup and remind ourselves what we're doing. You can use this physical manifestation to bring you back into the present moment and inspire you to stand your ground. They may have been able to trigger you, but you don't lose until you lose control. So the next tip I have for you is to choose when to respond. Now, this is something that we often forget, right? Because there are like these unwritten rules of conversation that it has to be like a volley. You say something, I say something. Really, the unwritten rule is that I say something related to what you said. But we know that narcissists don't follow that rule themselves. If they don't want to respond to something, they may say something, they may follow the volley, but they're going to give you word salad, which makes no sense, and it just puts the volley back into your lap. But here's a little secret. We don't have to respond to everything. Sometimes silence is the best answer, and sometimes it's not. If they just said something and they're waiting for your response and you're just basically having a staring contest, that's awkward and not productive. It's probably not what you want to do. Now, if somebody asks you a question, you probably do want to respond with some words. I wouldn't really advise word salad because it's really not productive and it's kind of stooping to the other person's level. But you could respond in a neutral way without an emotional reaction and without actually answering the question. Unless it's a question that your boss is asking you, or if you're in court with a narcissist and this is something that you absolutely have to answer, you can just decide, I don't feel comfortable with that question. I don't feel comfortable answering, or I don't have an answer for you right now. And if it's something that the narcissist says that you don't feel like responding to, maybe it's something even triggering, that they're waiting for your reaction. They're waiting for you to let your ego take center stage and just start fighting. You can say something like, I just don't have a response to that. And if they keep it up, and sometimes they will, you can say something like, listen, I know you feel like I should have a response to that, but I just don't. I'm sorry. Can we move on? And the last tip I have for you is to call out the negativity that this person is bringing to the table. Now, you're going to have to use your own judgment on whether this is appropriate in whatever situation you're in. But if somebody is approaching you with negativity, it's okay to call it like it is. Wow, you seem awfully negative today. Is everything okay? Or, I sense a lot of hostility. You doing all right? Now, bonus points for those of you who can do it with sympathy. You seem really upset. Are you okay? Because here's the thing. The narcissist does not want your sympathy. In reality, no one really wants your sympathy. I talk about that in a video about empathy. And I'll link to that one too if you're curious about the difference between sympathy and empathy. But the narcissistic personality does not want your sympathy. They do not want to feel like you are pitying them, unless they're going to directly benefit from your sympathy or your pity. But in a situation like this, they're not going to benefit from it, and they will despise the fact that you seem to have sympathy for them or that you seem to be pitying them. Because when you have sympathy, you're essentially feeling sorry for someone. And in order for you to feel sorry for someone, you have to be on some kind of higher ground, right? Even if it's just somebody else is sad and you're happy, you're in a better position than they are, or else you wouldn't be pitying them. And I have a story that I think illustrates this really well. So a few years back, I knew this woman. I didn't know her very well, but we hung out a few times. And her story was that she had been very rich, like really rich, like 1% kind of rich. And, whatever circumstances happened, and she had to start over. And so she was doing that. She had just bought a modest house in a modest neighborhood, and she had an interaction with a neighbor that really upset her. And so she told me about it. Here's what happened. They were both outside, and the neighbor approached her, and they were having a conversation, small talk. Somehow the conversation turned to rich people with a lot of money. And he wanted to commiserate with her about this, that, rich people. And so that's it. That's the story. Can you find the problem? The problem was that he dared to put her on the same level as him. He dared to lump her in with his type. She wasn't his type. No. She actually said he had no idea who he was talking to. I am those people. She was angry. And what's more is that she was telling me this story. She was intentionally telling me this story, knowing that I am his kind of people. And the fact that she was repeating the story to me either showed just complete lack of sensitivity, or maybe she was also sending the message to me that I should recognize who she is. And although this wasn't a situation where he had pity on her or was showing her sympathy, he was putting her on the same level as him. And that infuriated her. Having sympathy or having pity is kind of like taking it a step further. So it's saying that, again, I somehow have some higher level than you. And that's not something that really goes over well with a narcissist. So if you're going to use this one, if you're going to play the sympathy card, be sure you're prepared for angering the narcissist. If you fear them in any way, do not do this. All the other tips will work just fine. And like I said in the intro, you can use these tips to train them on how to deal with you, to stop triggering you, and to keep conversations short and concise. So how does that work? So if they're not going to get the reward that they're trying to get out of you, they're going to stop trying. For some, it takes longer than others, but they will eventually learn that their efforts are better spent getting supply from someone else. And your secret weapon is going to be maintaining consistency in your actions. Consistency in not giving them supply. Consistency in not reacting to the other person. And so they'll stop thinking of you as a source of supply. And if you're lucky, they'll try to spend less time with you. So any interactions that you have to have will be short and sweet. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please hit that like button. And if you'd like to see more videos like it, subscribe, and I'll see you next week.